Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special character building background episode of I Cast Fireball. I am Jacob, and join with me today to talk about all things character background building is...
Hey, what you doing there in the back, Jacob? In the back round.
Oh, the delivery. Oh, man. What a classic.
I'll see myself out. I'll see myself out.
I'd give you inspiration.
Okay. Only a fellow dad would respect the cheesiness of a dad joke.
Oh, 100%. 100%. Oh, there's a dad joke I heard today. Which one was it? It was, I'm not even going to say it. Thomas, you can cut that out. I totally forgot what the dad joke was, but it was a funny one. I laughed at it. But yeah, there's a certain dad humor that only dads get where it's like, hey, that's funny.
Listen, don't cut it out. I love the line. The line, it was funny, I laughed at it, and like legitimately, you can't remember the joke, but you're still feeling the joy of it is a wonderful thing.
That's pure. That's the sweet spot for dad.
That's the kind of weird dysphoria that comes with parenting. You forget so much of what you've experienced, but it all is there somewhere inside
it's you. It's all jumbled there, and in joy and trauma, we'll say.
I was gonna say trauma and joy as well. That's exactly the perfect words. Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, speaking of joy and trauma, backstory.
So well segued.
Oh, well, in these episodes, we don't want to give too much away in terms of actually backstory. It's more of character building, and obviously that leads a little bit of backstory. But that's what we're diving into specifically, how we were able to build our characters in the background behind our decisions, without giving, again, too many spoilers that might add to the plot of I Cast Fireball later on. So starting out, Josh, we're going to talk about your character, and specifically, let's start where everyone usually starts when they pick their character, the class. My first question for you is, you decided to be a wizard in this campaign, and why were you drawn to that particular class?
I love wizards. I think wizards are awesome, and I think it's hard to appreciate them unless you've spent years learning all the rules. I feel like knowing 5e inside and out makes being a wizard a lot more fun. I'm less there's still huge gaps in my knowledge. I mean, that happens almost every episode. There's stuff I don't remember and I have to look up, but I'm way more comfortable flowing with it. I think a lot of people who jump into D&D find wizards intimidating, but at this point, I just think they're really fun and they're way more versatile than I think they get credit for. So yeah, I just love wizards.
Oh yeah. I know my son is starting to get into D&D. We kind of not dumb it down, but simplify it to be able to kind of meet his level of the age he's at right now. And he was like, what are the classes, Dad? And I was going through all of them, and we get to wizard. And he's like, I want to do that. And I'm like, let's pump the brakes.
Here we go.
Let's go sorcerer first.
Yeah, let me tell you about the blade dancer wizard.
Oh man. Yeah, but you're right. There's so many. It's one of the most complicated classes, but it's because of how versatile it is. You can go in almost any direction. Literally, I've even seen people become almost a fighter wizard in being almost a tank character, which is so unique. But then at the same time, you could be the pure glass cannon, or you could be, the support manipulating the battlefield, if you will. Which leads us to the next part of your class. You specifically focused on divination as your kind of wizard focus. And that's a unique one because most people go evocation or a couple of the other ones. Divination, I haven't seen a lot of people, at least in my own experience, touch on that. That's one of the lesser used subclasses, if you will, of being a wizard. So what drew you to that in particular?
I think the two things that made me want to do divination, there's external sources like media I've consumed, seeing other actual play cast members pick divination wizards, and just it sounds like a lot of fun having those two divination rolls in your back pocket every day. But character-wise, the things that I think I wanted to play a support character, I knew that right away. I knew that Mickey would be bringing the heat in terms of melee power, and I figured you would be a good fighter too. And with Ned, it's like he's probably going to do something heady, you know what I mean? Like something, but he usually make sure that he's equipped. I feel like in the games we've played, he usually comes ready for a fight as well. So I thought maybe I'll make a guy who's not ready for a fight and who's more curious than he is aggressive. And so I don't even know that I'm not really, I think we talked about this the other day, and I said I'm not really a glass cannon. I'm more like a glass t-shirt cannon.
Yes, that's
right. I want to help solve problems like with the party, but I also like want to investigate things. I want to find where stuff is and discern things about the environment and figure that stuff out. And so I so de-emphasized like evocation and really focused on this idea of discovery and intrigue.
Definitely. Those are, I know when I first season was playing as Lance, that was something that I was really interested in terms of I dove a lot into, besides dexterity, into intelligence. Because of that, I want to solve the mystery. I want to solve the puzzle. I want to look a little deeper into what we're getting into. And I think that lends obviously naturally to wizards because that's the intelligence is their main score usually.
Yes, and I know we're going to get to this, but as soon as I landed on it, I think I decided wizard and Haragon in the same breath.
Oh, okay.
And I knew I wanted his background not to be like a schooled wizard. Like he didn't go to like, because intelligence is the main like your main modifier. For your spell casting, and typically that means you went to a school of magic, and that's why they talk about the different schools, the transmutation, abjuration, all that jazz. And the one that everybody picks is evocation, is like I think everybody's favorite because it is so combat focused, very useful in truth. I wanted to think of a reason to have divination magic outside of a school, and the rabbit thing made me think of Rabbit from Winnie the Pooh. And he's a gardener, and I thought, hey, it'd be really handy if you could like forecast the forecast, like literally, and like get a sense for how the crops are going to fare, how the weather's going to do. And so that felt like a really good idea. So I like the idea of like this almost homegrown, like tradition of divination wizards within a family of farmers. So that was kind of and I don't think I've hit. That's not like a hidden feature. Buster's pretty open about like his general origins in that regard.
When I love just divination itself is a cool thing because of just the ways to manipulate. It's the closest you get to almost manipulating time in D&D. Obviously there's some spells that do that. You have the new through Matt Mercer. Now I'm blanking on it and everyone's going to immediately shout it out listening to this. But you have a new class that does that almost. But divination's like the original way of doing it. Like I can maybe not
see in the future a
exactly.
little bit.
See into the future, manipulate possibly the roles and what might happen on the battlefield, for sure. Let's go to the next one. You already started to talk about it in the same breath as a wizard. The next thing that most people go to when they decide their class is, okay, what's going to help my class or maybe just help me create this character? And that is the race of the character. We're still on old 5e rules, not new 5e rules, which they have now, the 2024 rules. We're using just the original ones, with the modifications that have come out before the brand new stuff from this year.
Yes. Yeah, Ned has a whole new list of Crunch Squad.
Yes.
To pursue.
Oh boy, oh yeah. And for that, you decided to jump into, for your race specifically, Haragon. And you've already, again, started to answer this question, but what kind of settled that for you? You've talked about, you've drawn inspiration from some things. What are some other sources that kind of inspired you to go with this?
Yeah, I think initially, like I said, I knew I wanted to be a caster and I wanted to be a support character. And at the time when we were discussing this campaign, the first character that came to mind, I was watching the latest season of Netflix's remaster or like remake of, or continuation, I don't know exactly how to define it, but the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. Yes. And there's a little floating guy with big pointy ears that poke out of a conical wizard hat. And you can't see anything but really his eyes, and his name's Orko. And he's supposedly like really magically adept, but he's also a coward and really is not very handy in combat. It's kind of like ironic when he ends up having a sword or something like that. And so I like that juxtaposition of like this super useful magical entity that's also kind of pointless when bad guys show up. But like he does end up helping and being. But I love this I don't like this conflict. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be part of this. That all energy like is really fun to me, and I think introduces some interesting conflict. So the Orko was kind of a chief point of inspiration, and I thought the pointy ears are like bunny ears, and a bunny can be small. And initially my thought was, how could I coax Thomas into giving me like boots of levitation, so that I could float with like a big red like flowy robe, like essentially make Orko. I was like, how can I make Orko in 5e? But honestly, it left that whole ideation so quickly. It changed so fast from that, and Buster became more of a, I think personality wise, he's definitely way closer to Rabbit from Winnie the Pooh and Bugs Bunny. Like he has a bit of like a stinker kind of like streak in him, and so yeah, that was kind of where I'm less like Orko in that sense.
Well, I know. Even what you're talking about, I can still see some connections to Orko where it's like, I don't want to be part of this conflict. I can think of already things that we've gone through where it's like, Buster got us into this, and now Buster's like, you guys take care of it. We're like, what's happening? But yeah, I've also seen you kind of branch off into those different inspirations. I talked to you about this the other day, right before, literally like a week before we officially started, like, okay, we're getting into season 2. We hadn't talked to each other about what our characters were going to be, and I almost actually went to Haragon. I was drawing some inspiration. I was going to be a Haragon cleric, and I was drawing inspiration from the rabbit from Alice in Wonderland. And I was going to do a little play thing on that, but then...
Oh, wait, which rabbit? The clockwork? The one that's worried?
He's going to be late.
Because isn't there also a rabbit with the Mad Hatter?
That's right. Yes. There's... Or no, he's the same guy, isn't he? That's what he's late for. He's late for the tea party.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. That's why he's late. Oh, he's late for a very important date. He's got to get to the tea party.
There you go. Yeah.
But yeah, I was going to go with that. But I can see the appeal to it just because of it leads to a lot of fun character kind of ideas.
Also, like, I don't know why. I'm sure this wasn't your angle, but for some reason, a clockwork cleric just sounds kind of fun to me. I don't know what that looks like, but that is kind of...
You're actually right on task. I found a homebrew. You can look it up, anybody. There's a couple of them out there. I found one in particular, like, that was a time cleric. And...
Ooh.
It was definitely a fun thing, but Thomas hadn't told me anything you were doing, but then like last minute I was like, nah, I just want to shoot things in the face.
Dude, I love Max so much. He's such a fun character.
Oh, he's real fun.
He steals the scene so often. It's just it's a blast, man. I could gush about everybody in the cast. It's so easy with you guys.
Yeah, we've done I mean, not to toot our own horns, but we've done a pretty good job finding very different characters, but finding ways that comically and sentimentally and conflicting wise they play off each other pretty well.
Yeah, I've yet to see like a one-on-one dynamic that wasn't interesting to me.
Yeah.
With the group of 4. Yeah. There's like it's kind of however we get paired off, it's curious. Like I'm like, ooh, like I wonder what's going to happen now.
Yeah.
And we're even a little further than what's published, and I still feel that way.
Yeah. There's some fun moments coming up for sure. All right, our next question then is on specifically, again, not giving too much away in terms of story, but background instead. In the 5e rules that we're using, everyone has a background. What is, if you're comfortable sharing, what is your background and kind of what connected you to that?
My background is pirate.
What? Left field. Left field.
It's a variant on the sailor background. And there's and Buster has mentioned this briefly. I think he even mentions it early in the season, so I'm not spoiling anything. But essentially, I actually ripped this straight out of an Ursula K. Le Guin book. He left home, right, to leave the farm and the dirt life, and he was drawn to life at sea. And I love the idea that like, he got on board, he got excited, he's super committed, and then his captain decided to turn them all into privateers, because a captain could just do that. The captain will just go, yeah, I didn't tell you guys, but we've got a bunch of stolen goods down there, so like we can't be caught by the Navy or anything like that. And so then it's like you're all complicit and you have no options, you know what I mean, as a crew.
It's like that famous scene. I see it more in memes than people who know the movie, but it's The Rock and Kevin Hart in some movie they did together where it's like, are you in or out? He goes like, oh, I'm out. He goes, well, that's too bad because you're in. You're already in. He's like, no, I'm not.
Exactly right. And so, like, I think he found himself in one of those situations and had unfortunately already made himself an asset to the now pirate captain. And so he kind of had to play along and then just ended up, I don't think he ever, like, intended to pursue pirating in that regard. But that might be going too far into character. Essentially, he accidentaled himself into being a pirate, and so that's the only reason why he has any level of like piratey experience. And I don't know that like I don't know that I'm ever going to use the features of that background or not.
What are the features?
You guys have given me some. It's essentially like you can you have connections, like you can get to a safe house. Like a smuggling safe house, like you know where some are located.
I could see Thomas easily playing that. Like we get to a port city and Buster's already been there.
Yes,
he can I could see that easily playing into some things.
And
Thomas
who knows?
will bring.
Like there's a lot of Buster's background I haven't fleshed out. I usually I'll write like 5 to 10 pages of like backstory for a character when I'm getting ready to play them. But I'm at this interesting season of my like D&D gaming where I'm more interested in who the character is first. I feel like sometimes I write a whole bunch down and then I get in the game and I start role-playing off of people and playing the character, and the character changes from what I had intended. It gets its own life and kind of begins to develop. And so I wanted bullet points for his background. Like, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, general ideas. And then I intend to write down like more fleshed out and have kind of a deeper idea of like exactly what occurred everywhere.
You have concepts of a plan.
Oh, gosh.
You don't know that reference,
I have more than
you can
that.
go look it up.
I've got more than concepts.
But that's cool. I think that gives you more. It gives you a cool sense of freedom, though, where you can go. Thomas does a good job, even if we write strict backgrounds to obviously throw us curveballs and kind of take it in new ways. But it also gives you then a lot of freedom to almost improvise on the spot of like, oh yeah, this happened, like. And you're able to actually like kind of create the story as you go. I know one moment that I can relate to with that where I think I revealed this in last season or for Lance, when we get to when we meet your character and we go to the casino and there's Molly, that was not a backstory, but I texted Thomas during it. I'm like, this would be a cool.
No
I did.
way.
Yes, I texted Thomas and was like, Lance used to hang out with Molly. Can we put that in? And he just texted back a thumbs up and we went with it. So I think that's...
Dude, that was great. I would never have guessed that was a last minute addition. That felt way too like
it was fun, but I think that's what will now be available to Busters. There's so many moments where you could just be like, obviously not to take things over like, I know this pirate, but
no,
more of like, you can incorporate yourself in different ways and almost lend your story to the main story to give it more dynamic kind of elements.
Easily, the first big change was in my initial vision, with like the more Orko like Buster. I envisioned him being pretty young, like young adult. Like, I don't think Herringons live very long, but in the lifespan of a Herringon, a youth still, like a young adult person. But honestly, the way it ended up playing out with the way I was role-playing with you guys and having some level of pirate background, I just felt more right to be older. And so I kind of embraced that, like, gray whiskers a little bit and being more middle-aged.
That's it. I didn't
Buster.
even think about that. I've always considered not Buster to be. I mean, we have the youngest captain in the freaking world. We have the Satyr, the 13-year-old Satyr. But
I still question that. Everyone listening, I still contend that I don't think he's actually 13. I think there's some magical tomfoolery
he's
going
like
around there.
The forever 13-year-old, a 13-year-old who's really like
something like that.
300 years old. Interesting theory.
Yeah, like I remember Buster asking, how long do you think a year is?
That's right. Yes.
Because he just doesn't give off 13-year-old
I would
vibes
say Buster
at all.
doesn't give off too old vibes either. I've always taken Buster to be like kind of a young, not a teenager, but a young adult kind of like going out into the world. So that's interesting, and possibly I can play on to future things to be like, actually, I've been around the block. Well, and he has as a pirate, but I've been around the block a little bit. It'll be interesting to see how that keeps going. All right. Well, we got one other question for this until we kind of wrap it up. Our last question that we're really going to focus on is alignment. And this is really interesting because the first season, I can't remember everyone's alignment off the top of my head. I believe Ned and Mickey were basically kind of chaotic good, and Lance was a true neutral who might have ended up as a chaotic good in the end, kind of. This season, we have some very different dynamics going on. So what is Buster's alignment?
He is, I had to look at it to remember, but as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, definitely. He's neutral good.
Okay.
So he's definitely not like, he has a bend towards being nice. You know what I mean? Like that's definitely his goodly nature is there.
That's so interesting with a pirate background too.
Yeah.
He's like, he has the background that's probably the seediest, or at least that we know of right now, but yet he's probably the most good then.
Yeah. I could contend that there's a lot of pirates in pop fiction and are like in modern and probably historical fiction that would fit more of a chaotic good. Like Long John Silverman, his relationship with is it Jim, the kid in Treasure Island? Like that's an interesting dynamic, and there are elements of that where you're like, he actually cares about this kid.
He's not necessarily evil. He's kind of a neutral almost, but like
it's probably like more of a chaotic neutral.
Yes, a chaotic neutral almost, because he has
being willing to lie his way to get in every once. Yes, he definitely does not follow any kind of laws. But yeah, I mean Buster in that way, yes, he is. I think being duplicitous is perfectly fine for Buster. He like if he has to pretend to like somebody in order to survive, he'll do that. If he has to, you know what I mean? Like he will definitely. He has no illusions of lawfulness in his current stage of life. So yeah, he's definitely comfortable with skirting the lines of the law, whatever law really. Like there's not a lot of codes I think he's interested in following. It's kind of definitely the goal. The goal is the goal.
Yes. Yeah. Get to the goal.
And he will avoid, I think, being overtly cruel or evil in that regard.
I know it's going to be interesting because, I mean, I won't spoil it now, but as she might have actually mentioned it, we're going to see a curveball definitely from Mickey in her background story of her alignment.
It's lawful something.
Lawful good, if you haven't told. She follows the law.
I mean, I'm just... She's got a law, right?
She does have a law.
She's so intensely devoted.
Yes.
That's the only reason why I would guess lawful. My guess is lawful neutral.
Yeah.
Or I don't think lawful evil.
Yeah.
But that would be a surprise to me.
Yeah.
But also, like, I don't know. I think alignments are very fluid. I don't think I don't hold them as mechanically rigid as the other elements of the character.
They're definitely fluid. They change over time. That's why, again, in season 1, I felt like Lance changed over time, because before he was just like, not our fight. Nope, not happening here. And over time, he was like, no, I have to uphold the party. Yeah, maybe we got to save the world. Stuff like that, where he changed over time. So yeah, it's definitely a fluid thing.
Okay, can I introduce a question? And maybe this is something...
How dare you?
I can ask you about Max, or maybe you can ask this about everybody else. It's I got this from Abria Iyengar. She's an incredible dungeon master and role player in the actual play world, and she got it from somewhere else. But I just pulled it from hearing her quote it. But she says whenever she's making a world or a character, she always likes to ask, what lie does this person or environment believe?
Interesting.
It's a great way to like kind of tack into a core dysfunction of a character.
Yes.
Because I don't think you can really build a 3-dimensional character unless there's that kind of dimensionality.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like the listeners who have paid attention to like the episodes and the interactions between our characters probably could come up with those. I don't feel like any of us hide our character flaws. But I would just say for Buster, I think one of the core lies he believes very intrinsically is that he does not have to. I think the idea that he can skid by is a very like big truth for him, that he doesn't have to face his past. He doesn't have to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That there's whatever's in front of him, it has nothing to do with what's behind him, if that makes sense.
Definitely. I can see that. Buster doesn't, it seems like to me at least, from my character perceiving him and just seeing you play him, Buster doesn't think a day of reckoning will come. Like, we'll get by.
No, and it's one of those things where he's super comfortable talking about his past because in his mind, it's dead and gone. Like, there's nothing in there that matters anymore. And so,
which is going to be very interesting how Thomas most likely will bring something back to it.
Dude, there's, as a role player, and Thomas, this is not for Thomas. If you're Thomas, the DM of, I guess, Fireball, you can stop listening to this.
Who's also editing these episodes.
Like,
so stop listening.
Oh, no. There's like legitimate nerves. Like I feel legitimate nerves thinking about the idea of somehow us ending up like at Buster's like hometown, like at the burrow, like where like, you know, like he was raised and like his family, like all the weird cousins, uncles, you know, brothers, sisters, his mom and whatnot. Like for any reason interacting with them on Buster's behalf, it makes me deeply uncomfortable. Like it's like something that I think he would absolutely run from. And I don't know how I would roleplay that as like a character having to face
There's so many good avenues that Thomas could go with. I immediately 2 images popped in my mind that are so contrasting for if that moment happened. One is almost like just like a destroyed town and Buster's like almost like this. And he won't because he's a wizard, but like a rabbit samurai Ronin who's like, I will avenge them. And then the other side is it's going to be like Toontown. Where everyone's just jumping around and just going crazy. And Buster's like, oh my gosh, guys, we got to get out of here. This is too much.
It really depends. It depends on where Buster's at in his like development as a character because in all honesty, right now, with that lie he's believed about like his past doesn't matter, I think if he were to stumble upon the burrow and it was like burnt and sacked and destroyed and he didn't know what happened to any of his family or whatnot, like if there were like burnt bunnies sitting around, that would be, that would mess him up. But if everybody's gone and his home's destroyed, I think he would have an incredibly good laugh. I think he would get an absolute kick out of it. So I don't think that would be healthy, but that's right now where Buster's at. Like that's where that's like how much empathy he has for his old home.
Like we said in the beginning, trauma and joy, they're both intricate to a max.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. So I'm curious, when you get to the point where you decide to talk about Max, I would be very interested in what lie he believes intrinsically as a character.
Yeah, I could see. I've never thought of that particular, but I can see, because he's a pretty open guy. He doesn't open in terms of like he's not sharing every detail of his life, but if it's asked in the right way, he's not like a Lance who's like very much the rogue, don't talk to me kind of character. He's like, no, we'll talk, but he's not going to just bring things up on his own. It's definitely has to be more of a direct question. So that'll be interesting to flesh that out possibly. I've got some ideas when you mentioned it. I was like, oh, that's how that could lead into kind of Max having a conflict of moral values or worldviews. So, yeah.
I feel like it plays into the idea of like, I play this character different than I would be. You know what I mean? Like when you start to connect, like Josh would make different choices because Josh has to like, nobody's aware. In reality, none of us are aware of the lies we believe. Like that's a really foolish thing to think. It's also kind of foolish to think that we don't have that somewhere in our psyche. You know what I mean? Like the more I know, the more I know I don't know. And so like you just kind of have to go like, okay, there's probably some blind spots. But designing a blind spot is an interesting task as a role player. But I think all of us have done it. I think all of us have very clearly identified those blind spots in our character and how they perceive the world and even the party. So, yeah, it's a blast, man. I love it. Yeah. I'm here for it.
It's going to be fun. Fleshing these out and seeing how a lot of these background details that we've built into our character, how they might play into the story itself. I mean, Josh, thank you so much for answering some of these questions. You got anything else that you want to say or talk about in relation to your character, how you created it before we wrap things up?
No, I mean, that's it. I just looked for a B letter C word, and that was a weird sentence to say. SEA. A B letter C word in order to make some alliteration with Buster. And so that's why I have Buster Bilgewater.
There's the name. That's how we get the name right there. Oh, boy. Well, thank you so much, Josh. We appreciate everyone for listening. We appreciate Josh for being here. We're going to have a episode for each one of our characters and possibly even Thomas. I'm going to try and coax Thomas, obviously not to reveal too much about the world, but what inspired him to pick this world for our season. That'll be an interesting episode.
You got to ask him about pipe smoke. Like, what is it with the pipe smoke in this world? Why is it so interesting?
I will. I could also see the answer being, well, I've seen it in a lot of pirate movies.
I don't know.
People smoke a lot of pipes. So, but yeah, maybe there's some more to it. But we appreciate again everyone for listening. Thank you so much. If you like iCast Fireball, please make sure to like, subscribe, leave us a review on whatever service you use. We always can need more of a boost in our visuals. That usually comes with ratings. Spread the word to friends on social media, anything and everything, because we just love it. We've seen so much joy come from people who listen to it, and we've obviously been really the main takers of all that joy because we've enjoyed recording it and creating the story. Also, make sure to check out our podcasts that are associated with us. We have, obviously, Ned's Improv Tabletop, where he goes through different systems and has longer form campaigns that he also goes through. He's always got some cool new thing up his sleeve. And Titans of Altera from Josh. Great stories, great things to listen to, great characters, another great world that's been built for your enjoyment. And obviously Josh's original podcast, where kind of it all started with him, Sneak Attack. It's not operating anymore, but it definitely is worth multiple listens because it's one of the great things that really has started a lot of our joys for in listening and creating.
Almost 10 years old, man. It's hard for me to go back and listen to that.
It definitely has some feels, I bet, especially for you too, being a part of it all. We thank everyone for listening, and we will catch you all next time in our background episodes of iCast